Thanks for the warmth as I peek out from behind this curtain. Also, fun fact for Adam, I was maybe lying to him about Oklahoma. I just wanted to put him on the spot to be my tour guide once I got here. This was a long con. I want to experience the wealth that Norman has to offer. I'm so excited to be with all of you here today. And just on behalf of my organization, the OLC, I really want to express the gratitude to the many individuals who helped put together this experience at the OU Online Conference, with special thanks for this entire team and for bringing the OLC into this and for allowing me to share my story and the story of the work that we're all doing. I've reflected quite a bit on how to situate this presentation in a way that would tie together the many concepts that we've all been collectively wrestling with over the past couple of years, and particularly around the concept of centering quality, equity, and engagement in the work that we do in support of our students who are learning in online, in blended, and in digital spaces. And more importantly, I'm going to focus on how the ways in which we see the world have a direct impact on our ability to transform the world around us. So when I'm afforded the opportunity to share my work with different groups across the globe, I try to start by taking a moment to share a little bit about myself as a way to conceptualize my view and my perspective. And some of my intersecting identities are available here on the screen. I'm a teacher, a student, I work in research, I work as a practitioner, I serve as a leader, I'm a colleague, I'm an advocate, I'm a collaborator, and most importantly, I'm a lifelong learner. And all of these views have helped to shape the ways in which I'm able to be of service to individuals located around the world. I'm also humbled to note that in my role as the CAO for the OLC, my work focus is really on helping to carve out pathways for accessing a quality education through professional learning, through research, and community engagement. And I'd be remiss in not also acknowledging the amazing work that each of you are doing in service to the same access mission through your broad and impactful support of teaching and learning at OU. In this moment of acknowledgement and gratitude, I also want to take a moment to honor the original stewards of the ancestral territories within the state of Oklahoma, affirming the care that the 39 tribal nations of Oklahoma have provided for these lands that allow me to be here today. I counter all doctrines of discovery that seek to erase the stories, the learnings, and the sovereignty of the peoples who originally cared for and continue to care for these lands. And I also affirm that all acknowledgements only bear meaning when they're coupled with respect, with relationship building, with reconciliation and informed action. And I ask that all of us pause for just a moment to honor the original stewards of the respective ancestral lands where each of us sits. Thank you. So with this recognition of where we're all standing, what we bring into this space and how this talk extends past a single moment in time and even is transcending space with my friend, the meeting owl right here, bringing in people online. I want to recognize those here in this physical space, as well as those that are joining online and that may be watching this back later. And this blended environment that we're sitting in actually offers unique affordances to continue conversations and collaborations. So I invite you to remix this talk into whatever you need it to be, whenever you need it. So what does this mean for what comes next? Well, this is really a warm invitation for us to engage in the following ways, as well as consider the ways in which you create space for collaborative, for multimodal, and for engaging connections within the teaching and learning environments that you support. So all throughout this talk, I encourage you to ask questions, think of questions, provide ideas. I'll give you places that we can continue this dialogue, but also to think of challenges as well as extensions generously and as you feel comfortable. I also want you to collaborate by sharing your stories, reflections, and examples with your colleagues after this talk when prompted and in any way that you choose. And last but not least, and these are really the words of one of my mentors, Dr. Jerry Hanley, who says, always give a gift, not a burden. I want you to redistribute all of the gifts that I'm going to give to you today, and continue the conversation beyond this moment in time and with others here and also beyond your institution. So we're going to start with a simple interaction to get you all acclimated to the spirit of collaboration and sharing that I know you all know so well, but I'd like to really center in our time together today. And I'd like to know a little bit more about all of the work that you are all doing. So though I work in digital learning spaces primarily, sometimes I like to mix things up and go with some analog activities. So we're going to do that today. For this one, if I call out a role that you hold at the OU, throw up your hand. And you can raise your hand more than once, knowing that we all consistently wear multiple hats and our roles in education. So who are our faculty, our teachers that are in this space? Okay. Keep your hand up if you're staff as well. Okay, nice mix. Instructional designers, and I use that term very broadly. I saw some hands shoot way up super fast. How about our administrators and our leaders in the room? Okay. Librarians. Oh my goodness. Oh, in the way back. Oh my gosh, I want you to come up to the front. Lead the way with us. How about students in the room? Just a couple. Awesome. Awesome. Well, what I did see was that we had a lot of pluralistic roles within this room. We had a lot of overlap, but I do want to mention too, were there any hats that you don and you wear that you're proud of that I have not said? And feel free to just call it out. Financial aid. Yes. Very, very important. What else do we have? I even want to broaden that to like folks that are supporting students within student services, student affairs. Yeah, that was a big miss. Anything else that I missed? Oh, very, very good. How about our open education champions in the room? People that are champions of open. Saw some hands shoot up for that too. What else? Faculty development. Faculty development. Yep. That runs through all of these different roles. Absolutely. Anything else that I missed? I really appreciate just taking a moment to represent all of the intersecting identities that we all have, and that, you know, we're all committed to education, but in different ways. And our viewpoint definitely changes based on who we're serving and how we're serving them. So, you know, really and truly, as institutions consider the ways in which we can instantiate and sustain quality, equitable, and engaging online learning, we have to start from that shared understanding of what the dimensions each mean from their unique vantage points. As such, today is going to be about the ways in which we see the world and how we collaboratively make meaning and drive our actions based on both the clarity of our view, as well as our outlook as informed by our collective understanding. So I'm going to kick us off by sharing a short story with you all from a couple of years ago. I was on a work trip. I was in China, and I was fortunate to spend a few days in Tokyo with family and friends after the work was done. And on the last day there, I set off to visit the world's first digital art museum by a group called Team Labs. Have any of you heard of Team Labs at all? No? Okay, this is new to y'all. So on the ride there, I was with my husband. He grew ill and he had to leave suddenly, but he implored that I still go to the museum because it was an immersive experience. I'd been really looking forward to it and I'd been longing to enjoy it. So I went very reluctantly. When I got there, I had to pack all of my belongings, my passport, you know, my bag, all of my money into a locker. And then I had to, and actually my shoes as well, because you had to walk through the museum barefoot. And I entered the exhibit on my own. So this is a shot of the inside of the museum. It consisted of several different digital experiences that were connected by these dark hallways, and they were barely illuminated paths. And I was one of very few non-Japanese speakers in the space, and I'm the daughter of a language instructor. She was a French professor and a Portuguese professor, so language is really important to me. And moving through that space, not speaking Japanese, I felt very ashamed that I hadn't taken the time to not only learn the language, but really how to connect with the people around me and navigate the space better. One of the early rooms that you can see here in the exhibit was called Soft Black Hole, and it required you to traverse a space where the floor was ostensibly a 4-foot deep foam mattress, and each step that you took displaced all of the people around you. And if you had no one to lean on like I did, you found yourself struggling and falling while those around you moved forward. And I questioned as I was moving through this space whether I should have come to the museum in the first place, and I didn't really know how I was going to get out of the space. Even months later, I couldn't shake that experience. And at the onset of the pandemic, this memory took on new meaning for me. Watching the entire world collectively enter into foreign spaces with little light to guide the way really haunted me. And I knew that so many of our students and even us as educators, we were all being thrust into new teaching and learning environments similar to this without the time, resources, and the support to feel like we had the autonomy and the agency to make it through, or even to get out as we barely move forward. So I want to move to hear from all of you. I think about all of you and your experiences continuing to navigate online learning environments in new and strange and challenging ways, even for many of us who have been working in digital learning spaces for quite some time. And I'd like to take a minute for us to reflect on our collective experiences. So this time, we're going to raise our hands again. We're going to go old school. But when I call out a descriptor that you experienced in your time supporting education during the pandemic, raise your hand. And you can raise your hand multiple times. How many of you felt isolated in the past couple of years? Fatigued, lonely, helpless? How many of you experienced self-doubt about your abilities to serve your students? Frustrated was a big one for me. Confused, feeling like you were unable to move out of the space or get to a better space. A couple of you. Were there any descriptors that I didn't call out that you'd like to share with the group? I can do the teacher pause. I also know that we have folks that are participating online in the chat. You can definitely put your descriptors in there too, and we'll capture those. So, as I think about, the work that my organization is doing in service to challenges that have prevented countless learners from around the globe access online education equitably, I think about just some of the big challenges that we've observed and how we move from that space of immobility into actually tackling them. I'm going to share some of these with you with the spoiler that none of these barriers were new to teaching and learning due to the pandemic. So working at a nonprofit with the mission to ensure access to quality online and blended learning in both the US and internationally reminds me on a daily basis that power and privilege continue to dictate the magnitude of the challenges across different contexts. And we see systematic failures to address underfunding and lack of infrastructure to support institutions, particularly those that are serving Indigenous, Black, Latinx, poverty-affected, and first-generation students. We see these failures in rural areas, in two-year colleges, and in career and technical centers of education. We also see these failures at macro and micro levels from individuals attempting to persevere through classes using Wi-Fi in parking lots of the universities and restaurants alike, still, even after we've come together and gathered on campus, to entire countries in sub-Saharan Africa and the South Pacific and South America still closed and have yet to return and to come open again due to safety. Looking at the landscape for quality online education, many institutions also struggled with readiness for offering education in digital learning environments at scale. Specifically, experiential learning suffered most greatly at institutions where online learning was seen as a weaker approximation of teaching and learning in face-to-face contexts, as opposed to approaching the curriculum development and the instructional design process by amplifying the unique affordances of online learning environments. And most painfully, even with a myriad free and open resources offering evidence-based practices and professional learning on quality online instruction, many educators and students alike were not afforded the time or the space to align the design and facilitation of instruction on critical digital pedagogies. So these interventions were employed as short-term fixes in the hope of returning to a construct of normality, as opposed to serving as catalysts for necessary digital transformation that would protect sustainable access to equitable and inclusive education. Lastly, and most profoundly, we illuminated our collective lack of attention to centering care in the teaching and learning environment. And I really clue in on this based on all of your hands that went up when I was giving those descriptives of isolation and doubt in the time serving our students moving into digital learning environments. We really learned a lot more about the burdens that our students carry into the classroom and how ill-equipped we've been to ensure the success of all of our learners and not just a privileged few. And additionally, issues of competing life and work challenges, food and housing insecurity, racial injustice, and physical and mental well-being served as challenges for not only our students, but for us as educators who were entrusted with caring for our students in times that we too struggled to receive the care that we needed ourselves. So clearly understanding our challenges is very key to our efficacy as educators, but how do we interpret this data and work to create a better educational landscape? And we're definitely affected by our ability to spot opportunities and places for advancement and growth. So I'm going to connect this concept of seeing clearly what's possible with a tale about the folly of youth, particularly my youth. So going back to the 90s, I was a freshman in college in New York City. And in an effort to embody the erudite persona that I wanted to impart to others, I decided to buy a pair of glasses for myself. Not because I knew that I needed them, but because in my naive mind, they served as a mark of intelligence. And the glasses that I wore were merely decoration and did not help me see any better. Fast forward to after I graduated from college, I was living in East Harlem in New York City. I was working as the webmaster for the City College of New York, and long hours of staring at code on a glowing computer screen had worn down my vision, but I neglected to notice the change over time. And it wasn't until I was waiting for the bus one day that I realized something was wrong. I was unable to accurately make out the numbers of the bus until it pulled up right in front of me. And it was then that I discovered that I was indeed meant to wear glasses, upsetting my previous viewpoint that things that were far away from me were always meant to be blurry. And donning that first pair of prescription glasses and seeing the skyline of New York in sharp focus, I realized how I had misunderstood how the world appeared around me because I hadn't sought out a way to better see it. My fascination with seeing and understanding has manifested itself within the space of creativity and innovation as well. I'm fascinated by the concept of synesthesia, which many of you may know is the phenomenon of one sense triggering an experience with another sense. And chromosynesthesia is quite common, where individuals connect colors to words, shapes, or sounds. And famous examples include the painter Vasily Kandinsky, who I have up here, attributing sound to colors, Albert Einstein writing equations in shapes, or artists like Lady Gaga, Pharrell Williams, and Billie Eilish seeing specific colors when they hear music. Laura Herman, who is a UX researcher for Adobe, wrote about her own synesthesia and stated that, as it turns out, every day of my life, I've been wearing rainbow-colored glasses without realizing it. And the image featured here was created by Laura as a representation of the colors that she sees as associated with the words that are listed on the canvas. And her quote explaining her interactions with seeing the world have often inspired me to think about the ways in which there are frequently dimensions of nuance and depth that are missed by many, but able to be seen by just a few. It made me wonder how we might shift our collective view to see more of the story, and how to perhaps we might be able to switch from just seeing the pathology within the world to identifying new and vibrant opportunities. More importantly, it begged the question of what it might mean in moments of creativity and innovation, including the times of stress like the pandemic, for us to widen our view of the world around us in search of more impactful solutions. So building on that idea that the ways that we view the world can be directly linked to our ability to change it, I think about the work of Brazilian educator Paulo Freire and his advocacy for critical pedagogies and literacies that help learners to see the world, to read the world. And in his seminal work, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, he situates education that helps learners to see the world around them as the means by which we deal critically and creatively with the reality and discover how to participate in the transformation of the world. His words ring true in this time of isolation, learning loss, and endemic inequities that were exacerbated by the pandemic as a call to action of how can we use our collective view of the world to facilitate transformation. So again, working for the OLC that has reached to many institutions across the globe has afforded me and my team a unique view on the challenges that we've been facing within the field of education, both over the years and specifically in this moment in time. And in many ways, 2020 provided us a new lens on the space that we're situated in right now, both in terms of the obstacles that we've ignored, as well as the possibilities to create meaningful and sustainable change. And in our work with schools and school systems and even whole countries of all scales and sizes, we've seen some consistent threads that have pointed us to not seeing the world as clearly as we should have. As I mentioned prior, we failed to recognize the challenges that have long been in place, including countless students struggling with access to the internet, technology, and safe spaces to learn. We've also seen that the challenges of power and privilege privilege within higher education are disproportionately disadvantaging several of our minoritized populations. In addressing these challenges, though, we also run the risk of not seeing the world for what it could be. Winston Churchill's quote, "Never let a good crisis go to waste," has fueled the work of countless institutions looking to create digital strategy and infrastructure in the hopes of sustaining continuity of instruction. And as we consider what our new reality will be post-pandemic, how can we glean new pathways to a future that ensures access to education beyond reactive pivots to remote instruction, but rather ubiquitous access to a quality and equitable education in any modality and for any and all learners? And more importantly, how can we use these dark days to illuminate a brighter future? So to give you an overview of what this can look like, I'm going to share a few recent cases that are culled from the work that we're doing at the OLC. And I'm going to start by elaborating on the strategy of reimagining challenges as opportunities and move into a series of examples of centering quality and equity through 3 critical view changes, which will include a series of resources that you can use. Everything's free, that can serve as catalysts for transformation across the institution. I was also remiss in not mentioning that you will have access to all of these slides as well. So when you see links come up, obviously you can take pictures, but you don't have to, because you'll have access to everything here today. So going back to Winston Churchill's quote about turning a crisis into an opportunity to assess our weaknesses and our strengths as institutions, while many of our schools have quickly pivoted to remote instruction by translating the face-to-face environment into a weaker approximation in the online environment, there have been countless other educators who have taken to openly sharing their preferred high impact practices for creating intentionally designed quality online courses. Additionally, our students have become more aware of the fact that not all online courses were created equally, and they've invited dialogue with institutional leaders about their needs and expectations for course design and facilitation that centers their own care and success, particularly in digital learning environments. And furthermore, even with many educators hoping to simply roll back to the face-to-face classroom, many others have experienced new methods of engagement, of active learning and collaboration that more equitably serve students through asynchronous online courses that can be accessed amidst full-time jobs, childcare, elder care, and other responsibilities that were heightened and sharpened during the pandemic. Encompassed by the aforementioned phenomena are 3 significant changes in viewpoint that I want you to hold close on the impact that online learning can have in advancing quality, equity, and engagement. And they're situating online learning as a lever for access to education across diverse contexts, moving from silos of online design and facilitation into collaborative communities of practice, and sustaining a culture of care for educators and students alike across all learning environments. And we're going to start with the first one here. So building from the university's mission to expand access to quality education, online learning becomes a powerful tool if and only if it is built from the foundation of the institution's strategy, which we heard at the beginning of this day today from the president talking about online embedded in strategy as well. We're now seeing more and more leaders consider this moment in time as critical for defining digital strategy across the institution, and not as a separate silo divorced from the mission and vision of the organization. Though it was born of the pain of the pandemic, this new focus on ensuring access for all learners has been pivotal in changing the infrastructure and strategy for teaching and learning at an accelerated pace not usually seen within higher education. So what are we referring to when we talk about quality within this context in relation to access to online education? There's a lot of definitions that abound around quality, but I go back to the roots of my current organization. And our president in 1997, Frank Maietis, he affirmed that any learner who engages in online education should have, at a minimum, an education that represents the quality of the provider's overall institutional quality. So any institution, he maintained, demonstrates its quality in 5 interrelated areas, and that's learning effectiveness, access, scale, faculty satisfaction, and student satisfaction. So whether you're new to online learning or looking for ways to accelerate your impact, these pillars of quality serve as powerful reflection tools for optimizing your efforts in online courses. Expanding on these pillars of quality, access also requires keen attention to the digital infrastructure present at the institution. And my organization is part of a Bill and Melinda Gates funded network network of associations that's called Every Learner Everywhere, that provides thought leadership and resources for advancing access to education through digital learning equity. And two of the organizations that are part of our network, APLU and Titan Partners, recently released a report. It's an open knowledge product, so you can access it now, that documents a framework of 6 critical dimensions for strategically advancing digital transformation across the organization. And these include leadership, budget, and policy, course design and delivery, student success, evaluation and analytics, professional learning, and technology infrastructure. And the report does a really good job of providing a way to consider each of these dimensions as a lever for change. And you can really use it as a launching point for critical conversations about how to create and sustain digital learning infrastructure to make sure that that learning is quality and rooted in equity at scale. I've just provided some examples of situating online learning as a lever for access to education across diverse contexts, but I want to move into my second change in viewpoint, and that's moving from silos of online design and facilitation and collaborative communities of practice. And within this theme, I'm going to highlight a series of impactful practices that include expanding faculty development, organizing discipline-specific communities of practice, as well as expanding the usage of evidence-based course design practices. So, investing in faculty development across the life cycle of teaching and learning contexts has been one of the most transformative practices we've seen in closing equity gaps across institutions through quality online learning. And early on in the pandemic, San Jose State University did a lot of work to move resources to expand their professional development for their faculty, adjuncts, and graduate teaching assistants, using the pandemic as an opportunity to increase faculty feelings of empowerment and agency over teaching in digital learning environments. OLC partnered with SJSU on curriculum development and instructional design within a series of custom courses, including a highly impactful Train the Trainer workshop that moved established online educators at the university into mentors, ambassadors, and evangelists for quality online learning. And the hope initially by the provost was that we would provide basic instruction for about 50% of the 1,500 faculty at the university. But because of the timing, the way that they marketed it, and the fact that they offered honorariums and space for the faculty to complete this professional development, they experienced a 90% completion record amongst all of their professors of record in that very first summer that they offered the professional development. Another transformative practice has been supporting institutions in creating discipline-specific communities of practice as a lever for improving course design and facilitation practices around digital pedagogy. And in line with our work for the Gates Foundation, OLC, APLU, and another organization, Achieving the Dream, who focuses on community colleges, engaged hundreds of educators from colleges and universities across the country in interrogating their teaching and learning practices within digital learning environments, reflecting on the ways to close equity gaps in gateway courses, experiential and technical courses, and for specific minoritized student populations. And the faculty worked in cross-institutional cohorts. So we had all of the chemistry teachers working together, all of the physics teachers, all of the folks in different experiential disciplines, building and sharing their work openly, and they were working in both synchronous and asynchronous digital learning environments on professional development activities that were guided, facilitated, and rooted in quality. And you'll be able to learn more about this high impact practice in a forthcoming playbook on discipline-specific communities of practices that will include a series of case studies that will be published later by the Gates Foundation as well. I also want to talk about us just going back to our collective roots in leveraging the theoretical and conceptual frameworks that have long existed within the realm of online learning, and particularly in instructional design. I started as an ID, I will always be an ID, and it's one of those spaces where it allows us to inherently center quality, equity, and engagement. And OLC in particular has seen momentous growth in the work that we've done around strategic consulting, with most institutions that are coming to us asking us to perform landscape analyses and provide recommendations on how to increase the efficacy and impact of online learning at their institution. And what we're finding time after time after we perform these analyses is that while institutions have siloed pockets of instructional design work that's happening, that the resources aligned to supporting quality teaching and learning in any modality are often underutilized or not shared across the entirety of the university. Principles like backwards design, universal design for learning, and the community of inquiry framework all support that collaborative design of instruction and at scale at the entire university, and the continuous improvement of education over time. And the institutions that have engaged faculty, staff, and even students in the design process have been able to advance their strategic priorities of access to education in sustainable and lasting ways. It's the old adage of, if you want to go quickly, go alone, but if you want to go further, bring others along with you to support you in your journey. Lastly, and as I mentioned briefly just now, institutions can advance access through a collaborative process of supporting the entire life cycle of courses, in that I've yet to see the course in any modality that doesn't benefit from iterative improvement every time it's taught. We have a responsibility to instantiate lightweight, effective methods for continually assessing and editing and improving our online courses to ensure alignment across course objectives, activities, and assessments. And at the onset of the pandemic, APLU, Achieving the Dream, and OLC came together to create a playbook for faculty looking to leverage effective practices and impactful strategies for designing, facilitating, and iteratively improving online courses. And the recommendations that are in this playbook, they're really great for differentiated experience levels with online learning, and they can be used to build courses from scratch, to improve current courses that are in need of redesign, as well as optimize strong courses that are well aligned to quality and equity principles, but can always be improved further. And best of all, the recommendations are meant to be applied in collaborative settings with faculty working closely with all sorts of other support members, including instructional designers and instructional technologists. Another amazing free resource is the OSCQR rubric. The acronym is OSCQR, and it's a course design review scorecard created and maintained in partnership with our friends at the State University of New York, SUNY Online. And this rubric can be used to improve the design, accessibility, and inclusiveness of courses. And it includes 50 instructional design and accessibility standards and can be used from anything from course refreshes to taking a deep dive into ensuring regular and substantive interaction standards across course offerings. And the OSCQR rubric is actually one of 6 quality scorecards that are freely available from the OLC, each looking at different dimensions of quality across diverse contexts, such as the administration of online programs, blended learning, teaching and instructional practices, and the selection of instructional technology and digital courseware. So the last critical view change that I'm going to share is by far the most important in ensuring the sustained efficacy of the work that we're doing, centering care in everything that we do. While sustaining a culture of care for educators and students alike across all learning environments may seem like a daunting task, it starts with a close examination of how educators are aligning their work to advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion. And one resource that I found very powerful for this, for starting this reflexive work, is the Caring for Students Playbook. And this is another free guide. This one was done in partnership with Achieving the Dream. And while this resource can be used for educators at the course level, the strategies that are within this playbook around centering care in the online classroom actually span across programs and initiatives, sharing practical strategies for building community, creating authentic points of engagement, and implementing holistic support services that focus on learner retention and success. And best of all, this playbook features the words of students who share their personal stories of how each of the practices included in the playbook have had a direct impact on their academic journey. So I've talked a lot about resources that you can use to reflect on your own practices, but I'm going to share one last resource that can really help with capturing institutional transformation at any level and over time. And this framework was actually recently published by UNESCO and was created as part of OLC's International Leadership Institute, which is called IELOL Global. And it seeks to advance the transformative power of storytelling and sharing our authentic challenges and successes as a means of inspiring new collaborations, partnerships, and models of support. And you can download the framework to use in your own context to story your work that you're doing to advance quality and equity in any context and across any modality, or submit your story to our online collection of stories from educators from around the world. So I've shared quite a few resources and approaches in this talk today, but above all else, I just really want to impart that this is an open invitation for us to connect, collaborate, and work together to reimagine the challenges in front of you as incredible opportunities to ensure equity and quality across the context within which you serve. And I want to thank you for allowing me to talk at you for way longer than I ever prefer, and also to share a bit of my vision for how we can collaborate to ensure clarity and focus. And I really look forward to continuing these conversations. And I will add that if you're looking to actually start this dialogue sooner rather than later, while we will have time for questions at the end of this, you're also welcome to join me in a follow-up session that I think is at 11:15, 11:30. It's labeled as a keynote Q&A, but I actually have a hands-on activity that we're going to be doing together, although you can absolutely ask questions there too. And it's really going to be focused on how we can put theory into practice within specific contexts and instances. So before I switch to questions from you all, I'd like to end with one more story. And I want to take us back to where we started today in Tokyo at the Digital Arts Museum. So though I was discouraged and lonely initially, I did make it through that room that limited my mobility and really made me question myself. And through the generosity of strangers and a lot of nonverbal communication, I realized that I was not alone, that I could call on others to help me, and that I was a lot stronger than I felt in that moment. And through room after room, these feelings grew stronger and stronger and took me to what you see on this screen, which looks like a whole lot of nothing, but it is a seemingly blocked room of giant plastic orbs. At first, I tried to push my way through, but I was met by a lot of resistance by others doing the same thing. And we were all sort of rendered stuck within the space. But it was then that I discovered that if I quickly connected with those that were around me and helped them to clear their path, that my own path would clear before me as well. I made it to the exit in this way, but when I got there, I didn't leave. I relished the time and the work that I had invested in making new connections and new paths, that I actually just stayed in the room longer just to explore and to help other people out. And it's where I found myself in my work. And, I continue to want to live in that space. I'd rather stay and commit to creating space for the empowerment of all of our learners rather than just leave those opportunities behind. So with that, I thank each of you for sharing a very small bit of your own journey, and know that I honor each of your unique paths that you continue to make by walking. Thank you so much.